This episode of HD Nation is brought to you by Gazelle, the fastest and easiest way to sell and recycle your gadgets. Time to get our HD Nation on.
Yeah.
One thing we have to talk about, the iPad 2.
Yeah.
Dongle, 1080p output.
Okay.
I think I know this, I'm going to make a joke here. I think that may have been a result of Steve having to step away from day-to-day operations. Otherwise, it would have been a 720p dongle. Is that cold or what?
Oh, you mean just it would only support 720p output?
Well, no. It's kind of funny, right?
Because it has the new processor, and it's usually when you're talking about increasing resolution, it'll be more about it takes more horsepower to throw that kind of video out or decode that original file.
I have an Apple TV connected to a 1080p television. I have a piece of hardware designed to feed my HDTV that is capped at 720p, and now I can buy an iPad that does 1080p out. No, I'm stoked. I actually think it's great. Now I just want iTunes to have.
At first, I was a little worried about dongles. I mean, I'm not a big fan of them, but if you look at like some of the mobile phones that are out there now that offer HDMI out, they're doing it with a micro HDMI adapter. So you got to get an adapter cable anyway.
All of the mobile phones require some ridiculous cable you're never going to find.
So a dongle that goes to a full HDMI output that you can use a regular cable with, I think that's an okay compromise.
Yeah, I think it is. It's
a solution.
It's just so funny to actually have like 1080p output coming from an iPad, not the Apple TV.
One way Apple users can get HD content in and out of their lives.
And
no Blu-ray yet, but there's your HD.
Yeah, well, Steve doesn't.
Or your 1080p, I should say. Yeah,
Blu-ray might take away sales from iTunes. Just saying. By the way, it was great to see Steve doing the thing on the stage, being excited.
Any mention of iPhone 5?
No, but I expect that will come in the annual June iPhone refresh.
My contract still has like a year and a half to go, so I'm waiting anyway.
You know what? You are officially an iPhone addict. Jay writes in, as a person who works for a broadcaster, I was very sad to hear you say, call the broadcaster and complain last week. Looks like Gabriel was watching the History Channel. This means he was probably watching it via a cable or satellite provider. I recommend that he call his cable or satellite provider. I say this because cable and satellite providers can totally screw up the picture and cause the problem he was experiencing in the weird black and white artifacts at the top of the screen. I have experienced this personally, as we once had an issue with our local cable provider where they were stripping out closed captioning. This went on for days until they finally admitted they installed a new box that took our HD signal and down converted it to SD. My guess, this is exactly what is happening. The History Channel is probably only sending out an HD signal now, and the local cable or satellite provider is doing the down conversion to SD locally and causing this problem. Jay.
I am sorry for implying that it could have only been that one solution. Jay, that's a well thought out response, and I appreciate it. That makes me wonder, though, because History Channel has been one of the worst in terms of taking SD content and just stretching it and then broadcasting that as HD. Well, but now I'm wondering if they were even doing the stretching part, because I'd say 90% of their what they call HD content that you see coming out of there is literally, it's just everyone looks like Oompa Loompas.
Which I gotta say,
it fills the screen, but it's not HD. It says it in the corner.
I was much happier with ESPN's HD that was SD with pillar bars, because at least the SD signal looks normal with the black pillar bars compared to SD content being stretched, so it looks completely awful.
Cool. So,
thank you, Jay.
Call your provider as well as talk to the engineers at the studio producing this content. Anyway, I'm just
well, yeah, but that's also an interesting question. Do you talk to the people shooting and creating the content, or the people at the network that is distributing the content, or the people at the national or local level?
Start where you're mailing your check every month to the person who's providing you with that content, and then work it up the chain from there.
Work it up the chain. Mark writes in, I'm in the market for a new TV, and I'm thinking about the Samsung 46-inch 8000 series, which, as you know, is an LED LCD. Yeah, we both love that television. Samsung also has the 7000 series, which is just LCD, but with a savings of 200 euros. That's about 400 US. Is the LED of the 8000 worth the price hike over the 7000 LCD? The two TVs are both 200 hertz. One is thinner, but that doesn't matter to me because I won't be mounting it on a wall. Thanks, Mark in Dublin, Ireland.
Hey Mark, the primary difference between the 7000 and 8000 series is that the 8000 has a more advanced backlight system that Samsung calls precision dimming. The LEDs that are located along the edges of the screen can be modulated to dim the picture, or basically the pixels in portions of the picture, to minimize light leakage, which makes black appear very dark. Essentially, if you can think of it this way, because the LEDs are around the edge,
right,
and they can almost do like a two-dimensional cross section, and where they both meet, they can gate the light right there so that if there's nothing on the screen and it's supposed to be black, they can actually turn off all the light behind those pixels and make it super black, so even in a dark room.
Basically, the 8000 has better blacks, which doesn't sound like a big deal unless you're in a dimly lit room.
Of course. Now, LCDs without some form of local dimming, basically the LEDs then act as a single unit and adjust the light output across the whole screen as needed. Now, visually, picture in your mind some video content with lots of dark detail, or just a screen showing video black. Now, if a small bright object enters the scene, a TV like the 7000 will increase the brightness of the entire picture. You'll see the whole screen kind of light up.
The black goes gray.
A little bit, whereas the 8000 can increase the backlight output just behind the bright object itself while leaving the rest of the screen and the dark details, well, pretty dark. Now, it's a subtle effect, but it is noticeable, and both TVs will give you a great-looking detailed picture. The 8000 happens to do, like Pat said, black a little bit better. Now, if you can sacrifice 3D, Samsung's C6800 series also features precision dimming, but it just doesn't include the 3D stuff. So that's another option rather than the 7000. But if you like the style of the 7000, that thinness, that's going to be pretty good. A friend of mine has a TV similar to the 7000
this year,
and it looks good. If you're in a bright room, though, you know what? You probably won't be able to appreciate that kind of dark detail as much as you would.
But if you watch a lot of movies at 2 in the morning, yeah, for the nice ones. Go for the 6800. 8000. Rick in second, the forum says it's time for a new display. I'm coming out of a 5-year-old 60-incher with a matte screen. The set is in a room with a large windows, French doors, and for much of the day, a lot of light. It seems that just about all the new large screen sets have only glossy reflective screens. I fear adjusting to the mirror-like reflections may be difficult for me and my other half. Isn't that your better half? Are there any decent LCD or plasma sets at that size with matte screens? Is there an aftermarket solution, such as applying a matte plastic film to the glossy screen? Or should I just get curtains or try to ignore the reflections?
Yep. Hey, well, the main advantage of those glossy screens on the latest TVs, it's essentially a filter on top of the LCD panel itself, is clarity. The light coming out of the screen is less distorted than it would be with a matte filter. If you could look up close with a magnifying glass, you'd actually see like almost blobs of plastic on that matte type filter that they used to use back in the day. One tip I can give you to minimize harsh reflections is to stick with HD content and channels that fill the entire screen. The black letterboxing or pillar bars appear more mirror-like than active portions of the screen that are actually displaying something. That's a tip for anybody with any of these types of screens that can, you know, just do that. Another tip is for daytime viewing in particular is to crank up the backlight system. Now, I am not saying you should use the TV's dynamic or vivid picture presets, but the standard preset with the backlight set to maximum will produce a very bright picture that'll help counteract the light that might be interfering with your viewing enjoyment. And also, every generation of LCD screens seem to do a better job at managing those reflections caused by ambient light sources. So today, those clear glossy screens are far less reflective than they were even a couple of years ago. And I'm seeing that it was really more of an issue with plasma displays because they had less light output. So they were coming up with some really interesting filter technologies that would minimize harsh reflections.
Right.
And that gets applied over to other display technologies as well. And they even do a demo. It's like, oh, here's our TV from 2 years ago. Here's our TV this year, and they'll put a lamp above it pointed right at the screen and say, oh, notice how less reflective it is. And it makes a difference.
It's worth wandering around your local big box store that has all of the televisions on display, and if you can like go through and turn them off and see how reflective the screen looks, then turn it back on.
That's going to be a worst case scenario.
It
always.
may surprise you how not reflective to, you know, bring a flashlight, you know, grab your flashlight, go into the thing and start shining it on there and see if you notice. It's actually kind of amazing sometimes how glossy those look when the television's off versus how not glossy they look when the television's on.
Keep that full screen video so you don't have those black spaces, because the black really does turn into like a mirror when it's like, or if you just turn the TV off, you could pretty much do your makeup right in front of it, or brush your hair.
Oh my goodness. Blu-rays?
Yeah. Hey, it's time for the new Blu-ray releases for the week of March 8th, 2011. First up, Exit Through the Gift Shop. This film is by and about the famous British street artist known as Banksy, or is it? It was released on DVD back in December and has been available in the UK on both DVD and Blu-ray since September, but now we can finally see a Blu-ray release here in the US, although this disc is region-free. With a 1080p MPEG-4 AVC transfer in a 1.78:1 aspect ratio, this release has both a 48 kHz 24-bit DTS HD Master Audio 5.1 mix, as well as a DTS HD Master Audio stereo track. And it's all on a 25 gigabyte Blu-ray disc alongside a DVD copy as well. Next up, The Walking Dead Season 1. A serialized zombie TV show from AMC? Yes, please! It premiered on Halloween last year, and if you missed it while it was on cable, you should definitely check this one out. It comes on a 1080p MPEG-4 AVC codec, in a 1.78:1 aspect ratio, with a Dolby True HD 5.1 track. High Def Digest says that it, quote, holds a pretty solid and impressive visual presentation to be from a Super 16mm film source, but it is very fitting as it adds the old horror film feel, unquote. This release is Region A locked, and those 6 episodes are contained on one 50 gigabyte disc, while the extras are on a second 50 gigabyte disc. Extras include a 5-minute making of specific to each episode, a 30-minute making of documentary, zombie makeup tips, and much more. Also released this week, Four Lions. This British film is a black comedy about terrorism and premiered at Sundance. And while it got a wide release in the UK, it only got a limited release in the United States. This region-free single disc release is presented in a 1.66:1 aspect ratio and includes deleted scenes, mini documentaries about Muslim life in Britain, and an interview with writer-director Chris Morris and behind-the-scenes footage. And as always, check out our show notes at techzilla.com or hdnation.tv for the rest of this week's Blu-ray releases. Coming up, how to create a music video jukebox. But first, it's time to thank one of our sponsors, Gazelle. Gazelle accepts more than 300,000 products from over 20 different electronics categories. Shipping is free on all items of value, and in most cases, they'll even send you a box to ship with. Also, for you green folks out there, Gazelle makes all the recycling partners adhere to some strict policies. No exports, no landfill policies, and a ton of data security standards. Gazelle is a great way to get cash to upgrade to the latest iPhone or Android phone. Just go to www.gazelle.com to learn more.